Good evening, citizens, and welcome to another Shattersong LARP Diaries. I'm your host, Chris, and today we're going to be talking about Empire E1. Now, because this isn't me reading out stuff from a wiki or giving you my objectively correct but still biased opinion on something or other, we do need a special guest to keep me in check. So, special guest, would you please ever so kindly reveal yourself?
Surprise! It's Amber again.
Oh my god.
Who saw
Amber.
that coming?
I know, right? Wild. Absolutely wild. Who would have thought that such a avid LARPer would not only appear once, not twice, but thrice on the Shattersong LARP Diaries? It's almost like being a LARPer and being on the LARP Diaries are are joined in some way. I can't put my finger on it.
Symbiotic.
Yeah.
Well, let's go. I mean, how was your weekend?
How was my weekend? What a question. You see, because this is a Monday afternoon, I've had a few people ask me, and I have responded with the picture of us beating the crap out of that particular monster on the Saturday battle before they turned around and they really had us good. But that is a bit of a spoiler, and we'll save it for a bit later. But how was my weekend? I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, maybe a
Okay.
6.5, and I'm going to explain that as we go through the cast. How was your weekend?
Hmm. I I've come away very broken, so I can't give it a 10 out of 10, but I want to. I really want to. So maybe I'll defy the laws. Uh, okay, I'll give it like a 9.837.
Nice. You gotta leave room to grow, right?
Exactly.
Fantastic. So before we dive into the patented Shattersong LARP Diaries post Empire analysis, we need a better word for that, by the way. An apology, first of all. Many as Fate episode 2. We were trying to get some extra special guests on that, and I don't mean extra special. I just mean extra special guests because I don't want Amber to feel bad. and
It's okay. I don't mind being not special.
and we are behind in putting that out. I would sincerely apologise, but I don't sincerely mean it. So I'm just going to give you a regular apology, and hopefully this episode will placate you for now. That said and done, how would you like to do this, Amber? Should we go through our patented method, or shall we just like throw mud at the wall and see what sticks?
I don't. I mean, I think you have a patented method, but I don't think I've ever stuck to it. So we can try and do the Shatter Song way, but it will probably quickly go out the window.
Cool. Alrighty then. So, for those of you at home who don't know, the patented Shattersong way, there are 5 categories to an event. The first is ice. This is the thing I keep getting it fucking wrong. Kit and camping, which is like both a mix of like icy and OC stuff. It's things like, oh, my camp bed was extra warm this event, or I got a new hat and I really liked it, and it starts off really nice. We then go into IC roleplay. After that is IC combat roleplay because they're very different things. Then there is something else. Gosh, I should be better at this. I think it's
I was
OC,
going to.
yeah, OC, IC, combat, non-combat, and then general as the 5th category.
I was going to suggest maybe we could also do like a because we had a lot happen this event. I'm sure every event's the same, but for me this felt very packed. I don't know whether we'd pick it apart day by day, and we roll those things into our analysis, or do you think that'll take too long? This is maybe something we should have decided before we hopped on. So sorry, listeners,
What
but
do you mean? No, no, they want to hear the admin.
want
I'm
to hear
assured
admin.
of it on the comment section in my head
Okay.
that is entirely me. Okay, let's go day by day because you're right that there's gonna be lots of spoilers if we do like IC kit, OC kit before we get to some of the roleplay stuff because some of the
Hmm.
things we made in the run up to this event, actual crafting projects, were very exciting and very important for what we were going to get up to. So I totally agree. Let's go with a day by day. And should we start with pre-Thursday with some prep? Because what I mean by that is we actually had a lovely plan going into this summit, and that was to become the official Pinewheels mercenary company. We've been talking about it
Ooh.
a lot. We are mercs, we are wagon raiders. We love this part of the Varushkan brief. But let's make it happen. Let's make it happen in Anvil. So, over the Long Dark, a very kind artisan, whose name I don't have because it was done via the Artisans Guild, was studiously creating a mercenary banner, the actual magical item, the Gonfalon, on the Empire Wiki that allows us to mechanically fight with a nation that isn't Varushka. And that might sound a little bit underwhelming if you don't go to Empire, but what it does mean is that you can have completely different nations and combat styles and people on the side of a battle against the people they would usually be fighting with. And it has loads of implications like, let's say Varushka has 50 fighters in it. If us 10 go and fight for Navarre, suddenly Varushka are smaller and Navarre are larger. So now that has to be recalculated and so on and so forth. So it can be a little bit admin heavy, but we have finally got all of the magical items in place and done all the admin to make that so. And to top it all off, we had a lovely new banner, a fantastic, let's call it maroony red. It's not quite maroon, but it feels very Pinewheels red, with a lovely brown wheel on it etched in gold. We're going to add to it as we go between the events, but it very much was a panic job on the Thursday afternoon, literally drying in the sun before we packed it into the car. Um,
Worth it. Oh,
yeah,
it's worth it.
yeah, so worth it. Having an actual banner on the field and also being able to walk into the MC tent with that flag, sick. Any cool projects for you, Amber, before we dive into the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to up my armor game a little, and I was trying to give Danica a bit more of a recognizable outfit because obviously it was only my third event. I did a little bit of crafting with the jerkin that I bought. I did a bit of prep for the game that I wanted to play, which ended up going straight out the window, as soon as time in started. Um, what did I do? I mean, we had a big LARP sort out as well because all that stuff was piling up in the garage, so that was really helpful. I felt it was a good way to get into the mentality of the weekend, just having that little prep session. But then I suppose move on to Thursday because I wasn't there Thursday, but you were, and you had to go and put it all up. So thank you for that.
Mm.
How did you find it? Tell us everything.
So I have to admit to making another mistake, and I forgot my disclaimer. I'm everything we're about to say is biased, ill-informed, and otherwise correct only from our point of view, and you are free to disagree. Or whatever the usual disclaimer is. I don't know. I'm biased. Anyway, Thursday night was a little bit chilly. It must be admitted. So we got on site. I have to admit, I forgot to actually put our tent on the Varushkan camp plan, and I very confidently said to Amber about a month ago, "Oh, it's fine. Don't worry, I've done it." That was objectively a lie. So, luckily,
Leave it.
Amber was able to get us a slot right at the back of Arushka on the field in a location lovingly known as Piss Alley,
I'm real estate.
prime real estate. And as you might guess, Piss Alley is it's just by the trees. People go to pee there. That's it. No, we did not get piss on our tent. No, we were not really near it. There's like a meter's width, and everything was actually fine. There's also a standpipe right behind us, so easy access to water all weekend was actually incredible versus having to walk around and find it. Otherwise, tent went up, our kit went in, and we had our banner and our little cute table and chair outside. Very wholesome little campsite. For the Black Scar gang, though, of the formerly of the Lindir and Ban Shattersong, the OG Shattersong, they had quite a delightful surprise actually. Someone had
Ooh,
made a fantastic looking, almost like group tent, like I guess you'd call it like an open-ended tent. Imagine like a Toblerone with no ends on. It was that kind of shape, and it had some beautiful engraving on the front. It had some raven themes, this lovely like green waterproof fabric all over it, and it was a proper like military group, 20 plus person tent that led into the area. And the TLDR is they're not sure who had ordered it and who had set it up initially, but it looked fantastic. So I don't mind camping in Varushka. I really like it. I think the camp life is awesome. But seeing that big, awesome tent come in was a delightful surprise. And that is actually where I spent my Thursday night. We scavenged for some dead wood because we forgot to buy logs for Thursday. We then used Elk, who is our local barbecue expert. More on that later. Elk was able to light the fire for us, and we actually sat there with blankets and a few beers and just had a chill one. There was no crazy parties, no wild scheming, no last minute dashing around, no trying to get like a takeaway order to the field, none of that faff. We just sat there, had a few beers, and a good chat about the event to come. Little did we
Lovely.
know
I mean,
that it was going to go off the rails immediately, but go on.
I was gonna say sometimes it's when I first came, we had a wild, wild Thursday night and it left me in such a state for the rest of the event. So sometimes just having a nice like catch up with people who you haven't seen in, half a year, it's just the best. And you've got the fire, you've got the woods. Navarre's so lucky to have that forest. Um, yeah, I can imagine the vibes were very, very top tier.
I believe the kids at the moment are saying that the vibes were immaculate. I might be showing
Hmm.
my maybe not age, but just total disconnect with the internet by saying it that way. But yeah, Thursday was a wholesome, family-orientated little drinky sesh, and we all got to bed around midnight. So I could come and get you bright and early in the morning of Friday.
Yeah, Friday was very fun. I had to get up at I think 5:30 to sort of make my way down to Banbury. We went for a lovely brunch, did a little bit of charity shopping, surfing. Then we made our way onto site, and I forgot how amazing it is to drive up and see the fields, everyone putting their tents up. And to be honest, Piss Alley, it actually wasn't as bad because when you first described it, I was like, oh no, we're gonna have such a dreadful weekend. But the plot was actually fine. It was the guide ropes, I think, were the biggest issue. There was a lot of sort of MI6 laser ducking to get to the tent, but
Yeah,
um, outside of that, yeah, I thought it was all right.
yeah. I mean, I think of Piss Alley. I heard over the whole 4 days, maybe two people actually pissing.
Mm.
So yeah, it was actually fine. It goes to show that even in Piss Alley and Varushka, it's gentrified and delightful to be in.
Gentrified Piss Alley.
Yeah.
Um, and we had a nice little sort of between the tents, we could look into the hearth and we could kind of see what was going on without really having to leave our tent, which was nice. Um, yeah, but that was Friday. We can also reveal Elk's other super talent, which is burger making. Who knew?
Oh yes.
That really kicked off the Friday. So before time in, Elk graciously bought just what I can describe as like a Gordon Ramsay kitchen to the Navarre camp and made burgers for a good sort of hour, and they were incredible.
These were good burgers. We're talking like thin,
Mm.
quite wide patties, but double stacked. Healthy dose of
Ash
salt on
burgers.
top. Oh, they were so good. Because we usually do I say we, back when Black Scar was a bit bigger, we would do drill maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. So we'd all get into kits, so we're ready to go at time in, because often there'd be skirmishes, right? But we'd do a
Mm.
big warm up, we'd practice all our skills and drills, bit of combat, bit of warming up, and that kind of stuff. But no, this time we had beers and burgers.
Some burgers. I think that's the best way to get ready for a battle. But yeah, that's kind of how we started the Friday. Then time in happened. Did you have any plans before going into time in of what you wanted to start the weekend off with, or were
Yes,
you just waiting for it to happen? Yeah.
yes. I had a strict and regimented order of what needed to happen and how quickly. And this was all in a mad last minute dash for 8 p.m. in a military council tent. So, oh, one more thing before we time in. I've picked up a new set of armor that I am deeply in love with and
You
is
did. It's very
fantastic.
beautiful.
Yeah, so that will come up later. But anyway, armor's done. Time in begins. I think before I go off, I'm basically doing the admin at this point for the tent and for the tent. Sorry, for the MC tent, and by which I mean our mercenary banner. I've got to collect everyone's PIDs. I've got to actually go get the ribbon from the Artisans Guild. I've got to then go and bind that to my character. Then create a mercenary group on the wiki, then add those PIDs to that mercenary group, and then bond them to the banner. So it was a real long process. Would not recommend doing it in the 2 hours prior to the actual announcement. So at 8 o'clock in the MC tent, you have to announce your Merc banner if you're going to do it for that event. So it's chop chop, snappy snappy. If any of you out there want to run your own Merc group, I'd recommend doing the admin at an event in preparation for the one afterwards, for sure. But I won't bore you with the admin because Amber has something much more interesting to talk about in terms of the profound decision she made to support the Iron Helms.
God, did it bite me at time in. So I had to sort of muster, oh, it wasn't, you didn't have to, but there was a lot of ex-Iron Helms, so people went to go support them, and Isaiah's dance, who met near the sort of God tent. And it was quite a rush for me actually, because I got my pack sort of maybe 6 minutes before time in. So I'm there like in the queue, sort of watching the time tick on, really quickly open up and see all of the horrible wounds that PD have given to Danica. Um, and I met with one of our other Pinewheels, Ollie, and we had to come in from Tharunin. That's how we started time in. So both came in quite injured. I had my ribs had punctured my lungs, my foot was infected. But instead of going, sort of straight to the hospital, we marched in, big group of us, and we went down to Varushka, where we had some lovely speeches made, and it was really emotional. I ended up crying a little bit just because it was it was a mixture of the adrenaline of rushing around God trying to get ready for the event, plus just actually coming back from Tharunin and seeing everyone's faces, seeing older I like got to meet them last event and served with them with the Iron Helms, and they were coming back with this sort of mourning mask on, and it was really, bummed, I guess is maybe the right word, but listening to that and sort of acting in pain was was the start of my weekend. We ended up, me and our Volov member of the Pine Wheels, heading up to hospital, where I then had excruciating surgery, and I think I really scared an apothecary sort of apprentice that had just started work in the hospital tent because I was really mean to them. And they were just trying to save my leg, and I was like, "What are you doing? Why are you letting, like this new nurse act on me? Don't you know who I am?" kind of thing, which
Do
was
you
really
know
fun
who
role
I
play.
am?
They were like, "No." Um, and because I had my new armor on at the time, I was like trying to tell them that it was new, and if they sort of cut it, that there'd be consequences. And it's just this poor person trying to sew me up.
Oh, that's so
Um,
cool.
it was really fun. There was three of them because it started off. I arrived. One of them sat me down. I didn't realize I've always been on the outside of the hospital after skirmishes and things, but never on the inside. And I didn't realize they have like actual kind of bed benches. So I got put on one of those. Um, and they had, I think it was like the head nurse of the hospital came over, ripped open the little cards you're given, and just immediately called for backup. And I was like, oh, great, gonna be here for a while.
Nice.
So, yeah, and it was cool. They were describing what they were doing because they were teaching the apprentice. So they did the chest surgery, and then the apprentice did the foot. So I could be a bit more present to berate them, really, which was so fun. And then I think that's when I met up again with you guys. I think you came to the hospital to support me. No flowers though, which I was a bit disappointed in, but did come with a nice death certificate in case I passed away. So, you know, you win some, I suppose.
I have something traitorous and upsetting to tell you. We didn't
I
visit the
know.
hospital to see you. You were just in there when we got there.
What? Oh my
Yeah, so we
gosh.
were on a job.
Betrayal. Really? I did not. This is news to me. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
See, I say things to this
Scandal.
podcast so I could just drop them on you. Um, so meanwhile, after Amber has been through Seven Shades of Hell, I'm getting my mercenaries paid. The Pine Wheels are trying to recruit, and as of this weekend, we are still trying to recruit. Asterix, we'll come back to this later. Um, so we are trying to get everyone bound to the banner, do the admin, and in the process of doing that, we're doing some RP, and we've got the banner with its actual ribbon on back into camp. We've been walking around in full armor, looking very cool in the process. And all of a sudden, Circuit runs around the corner going, "Hey guys, hey, 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 do you want a job? Like a job right now? There's a skirmish right now. You need to go." And me and Joe look at each other, one of my raiders, and we go, "Yeah, fuck yeah, let's go." So we grab Ollie and we jog up to the gate, but we haven't had time to put our armor on or anything because this is like 6:45 or something like that. I have no idea where the skirmish is going to, but all I've got is my tunic, my brand new Chow's tunic actually, free advertisement,
Bow down.
and an axe. Joe's got his sword and shield. Ollie's got his sword and shield, but he is in full chain because he's just come in from Tharunin and his helmet, so he's looking like an absolute badass walking up the field. And we get there, and of course, we hear screaming, so we come over, and we're like, "Oh, look, it's Danica." And I thought, right, that's rather than coming in and going, "Oh my goodness, are you okay?" Because I'm not playing Bletimir anymore, who is Danica's former husband. My new character, Rezimir, d legally distinct Rezimir, he doesn't know Danica that well, so he's kind of impassive. And this is where the whole, "Hey, Danica, you're legally dead.
I
Congratulations."
was so annoyed.
And the look you gave me, it could have melted steel. And especially when I was yelling, like, "Your fees are due."
Yeah, like
Just,
I hadn't at this point as well. I didn't even know what money I had because I hadn't had a chance to go through my God pack properly. And I was like, this is something I can stress out later about. And next to me, the little apprentice was sort of like, "Oh, is that your friend?" And I was like, "Shut up and do your work. Leave me alone." Um, yeah, so that was an ordeal, and I was really sort of keen to get that sorted as soon as the weekend started because the back of the illness sort of boomed cards was like, if you don't get this sorted, you end weekend terminal. And I was like, oh, I really don't want that to happen. But
gosh, imagine
we'll
dying.
come back to that later. Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds dreadful.
yeah.
Um, yeah. Anyway, post surgery was lovely. I bumped into Slavomir, who was I think we touched on Wix Rest last time. They were the group in Verushka that really took me in, and kind of showed me what role play could be. So I feel quite indebted to them. And I mentioned that we now had the Merc banner, that we were looking for people, and they, expressed really heavy interest to get involved. And they were like, as long as these skirmishes are safe and no one's going to really be in much danger, we'll join in. I was like, cool, okay, we'll pop round to you later. Sounds great.
Yep, we
And
can
then,
promise that.
yeah,
Absolutely, no problem.
absolutely,
Absolutely safe.
yeah. That was really funny. But yeah, I don't know what happened after that. What did you get up to?
Yeah, so at this point, we need to go and get an employer. So we're sat by the gate, and we're potentially going through, and we're looking at each other, thinking, we're wagon raiders. I don't know why we're here, but this could be really dangerous going in without armor. And if I die in the first 15 minutes of this event, I'm going to be livid. So we deliberately hang right at the back of the queue because we're not too bothered if we go in. Because at this point we run into Corwin. Corwin Thornhollow of the Navarre, the Strategos of Navarre, no less. And he's like, "Oh, I know, yeah, we need people on this, we need people on this." And we've had a little chat, OC, he's aware that we're mercenaries. And we say, "Well, pay us to queue." And he goes, "All right, 10 rings each." So 10 rings, we stand in the queue. Of course, we get bounced, and we go, "Okay, where's our 30 rings, Corwin?" And then this is the start of a beautiful relationship that ends up in us going on no less than I think between across the entire Pinewheels company 6 skirmishes and the main battle
Right. It
across
was
the
a lot.
weekend. Yeah, a lot. Like we got stuck into a lot. Asterix. We'll talk about that later. But but yeah, we go and get our first formal employment, which is a handful of thrones to fight with Corwin as his personal bodyguard on the Navari main battle, whether that is a Saturday or a Sunday. So congratulations, it's only taken us like an hour and maybe 15 minutes, but we've not only got the banner sorted, we've got the PID sorted. At this point, we go off to talk to Wix Rest to get them signed up. Oh my, I've just realised, Amber, I haven't paid them.
Oh my gosh, no, you haven't.
Oh my god, oh no. Oh, that's dreadful. Okay, so this is.
But don't mind them on here.
Oh my
I'll
god,
just have
no,
to edit that out.
no, no, no. I'm gonna keep it on. I don't. We don't do any editing on this. We don't do edits.
We're not talented enough.
Nah. The Oh, oh God, I feel even worse. So anyway, so we go off after catching you at the hospital. I think we. Oh, sorry. That's when we pick up the actual ribbon. I do the admin. We go and talk to Wix Rest and say, right, quick negotiation because we need to go and do this right now. How many have you got? And we sort of hash out the details, hash out what they're being paid. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It's less than I've been paid and less than I've quoted. We had a with Corwin. We had a lovely little bit of haggling role play as well for the mercs. So
Nice.
of course, Resume and the company have to make their profits. So I still think the troopers get a fair wage, but it's nice to have a little bit left over for parties. We'll touch on that later. Oh, I'm setting us such a long list to do later. Anyway, um, we go and chat to them, and like you said, they don't want to do anything too dangerous. They're a little bit apprehensive, would you say, to join?
Yeah, so Wix Rest really lean into the sort of family Varushkan brief. They're a very tight knit group and they always sort of protect their own in battle. So to them, sort of not fighting with Varushka is a big thing, but then also making sure they all get back safe is an even bigger thing. And we come in with promises of well-paid jobs, completely safe, and they were really skeptical about fighting with Navarre because Navarre, in Varushka have a reputation of kind of being wet blankets. But we also have a bit of a grudge against General Cadwell. I think he's still
Oh
general. I'm not sure, but
gosh,
Cadwell.
yeah, because
So
yeah,
they lost members of their group last summit in the big fight, and they really blame him for them to the point where they had to go at him at the muster after time in.
yeah.
And the Empress had to sort of jump in and say, we're all one family, look after your own. So, we said to them, look, you're probably not run into Cadwell on these skirmishes. We're with Corwin. He's a very competent fighter, and I think we did a good job in persuading them. You can tell you work in sales in your OC life. um,
Yeah, we got a nice
but
discount on the on Wix Rest as well. £1 discount on what they were asking for. We had a mutually agreeable price for their services.
yeah, and it was a really fun role play, and also I was really excited just to get to do more with them this summit, because they're really strong role players, and it was nice to see you guys get to meet them because I think you and Slavomir make a good team. Um,
Yeah, we hadn't talked to them much from so you hung out with them whilst I was busy being Pletimir at E4 getting killed by a fucking plague wolf. I didn't have much time.
yeah, that was fun. At this point as well starts. I had a bit of a Romeo and Juliet weekend. I don't know how else to call it. Um, Very tragic, and we'll develop it as we talk about the weekend. But that's where that also kind of kicked off for me. Around this time. So if you've listened to the last podcast, you'll know that I had a run-in with Black Scar, and that all started by someone like a shadowy stranger giving me instructions, and um, it was sort of my intent to get back at this stranger this summit because they had been very threatening, and no one threatens the Pinewheels or Danica for that matter. So I sent Black Scar a letter with a sort of a gesture of not a friendship, but let's meet, let's discuss. Because they don't like me. They think I'm a bit of a traitor when really I'm just upholding the law. So a sort of, hey, let's meet at 11 o'clock Friday evening. And I think that's when that reached their hands at this point in so that kicked off what was going to be a very tragic arc. But I think that's that sort of time. And then it's straight to MC, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so for us, it's kind of yeah that all of that is I say for us, sorry, this is for like me, Ostromir, and Michele. So me, Joe, and Ollie, who are sort of cramming this in. I'm not sure where Reese has gone playing Sigmir or Volov. He's gone to do Volov things. That's fine. Whatever. We start to march up, and I think you're with us for this, aren't you? Because there's the five of us walking into the MC tent for 8 o'clock with the banner in full kit, and we look
Yeah. The
absolutely
funniest
incredible.
funniest thing was just before that, it was almost like that scene in Anchorman where all of the different radio stations turn up.
Yep, yeah.
The MC banners just started coming out of nowhere. We started sort of having a bit of a heckle at each other about who had the biggest banner and who was the better merc. That was really fun
Yeah.
because I hadn't met any other merc armies before. But It's cool.
Yeah, and like comparing the physical size of our banners, and everyone's trying to
Yeah.
like compare like, oh well, I got paid this for this, or oh we get paid for that. And, well, there's only six of us, and I'm like, isn't that too small to be a mercenary company? Isn't that more of a mercenary band and stuff like that?
That's that's also when we learned that we were getting severely underpaid by Corwin, which we still haven't really addressed, I see. But I remember like I think it's one of the league groups were like, oh yeah, we've got like 2 thrones for this, and we were like, what? Well, I can't remember what it was, but someone was getting paid a lot. Um, unless Resume got paid that, and we just weren't, even like a cut of it. I'm not sure, but
No comment.
yeah, I knew it.
No comment. No comment. Um, the life insurance policy in the Pinewheels is very generous. That's all I'm saying. Right.
It is.
So we go in, and it's the first time I've ever sworn to a banner or even seen banners sworn in in the MC tent. And you know what? I think being a general or a senator or any other hat in the Empire is cool to an extent. I haven't done those hats myself, but I have done one of the champion seats before. Champions don't have many meetings, I don't think, but they're expected in a lot, and that was a real drag on on that character. But the plus side is you get lots of cool RP. Same for the generals and senators and mages and uh, cardinals. I imagine that they have a lot of meetings, but it pays off for the cool RP. But dear friends, I think the mercenary banners have got the best of both worlds because we get to walk in. We are almost immediately addressed by the MC tent. We get to do our bit of RP of declaring ourselves for which general and what we bring, and then we fuck off. We don't really care what happens afterwards. You know, we go where we're told to fight, and that's that. Most of us have already been paid, and we get to leave this big long meeting that's about to go on for about 2 hours, and go off and have fun. In fact, we get to go off and have a little bit of dinner because this is coming into sort of 8:30, 9 o'clock or so. And I think in the meantime, you might have had your Romeo and Juliet plot because the next thing on my cheat sheet of what actually happened last Friday night is I've got the pre-dinner dinner slash cheese board.
Yeah, so no, I think we were all, this is where we were all sat outside our Piss Alley tent and we just sort of broke into our little charcuterie board that's become a bit of a tradition. I think the theme of this weekend was cheese, it's just every single day we seem to have a wonderful cheese board. So we were talking about, I think we just discussed Verushka and how its armies have fallen and that people were planning on building another army. We just had really good sort of Pinewheels role play. We were just being Pinewheels, being Mercs, having dinner, being a family, which was lovely.
Mm. Yeah, and it's something I think Empire does very well is the low level immersion. So having dinners, having chats in the street with people from different cultures and different nations, right? It feels very real in Anvil. It's why I wish they had proper 4-day events. So you could get a couple of long evenings in Anvil and have the skullduggery. You could have the cultural exchange that goes on because you have to kind of cram it into Friday and Saturday night. But the chat at the Pinewheels camp, I think, was done almost entirely IC. Even though there was no other players around, it was just us being mates. But we were talking about how we felt about Navarre and their sacrifice in Thorunin, because the Sailor's Dance and the Iron Helms have both been wiped out over winter, and it changes our IC opinions on Navarre because on one hand, yes, they've got a rep for getting people killed on the battlefield, but on the other hand, at a national level, they're trying to wipe out the Valorn. Our Empress stands behind them, and we stand behind our Empress. And despite what we thought originally, the reality is that the Sailor's Dance and Iron Helms died back to back, and it's incredible to see that kind of international bonding, even though it's all happened off screen. I really started to feel it, and as we're having this meal, because we're having this meal, and I'm starting to feel more strongly and positively about the Navarre because prior to the event we'd thought about we don't want to work with Navarre, they're pulling us into this forlorn war. What are they actually bringing? And I think the answer we had from Cadwell at the standing well, the town hall meeting at 6 o'clock was sacrifice, and it felt a little. It was simplistic because it had to be brief, but the principle was you have sacrificed alongside us, so as far as we're concerned, you're Navari too. And Varushkans being dour and able to make the most difficult of choices, deal with the most difficult of things, and sacrifice to achieve virtuous things for their nation, right? It really rung true. And during this dinner, us being able to actually discuss that felt like a almost like a scene from a film where you've got
Mm.
the 4 or 5 main characters. You're about half an hour into the film and you're getting to hear a bit of the backstory slash personal opinions of these characters. And on top of that, balsamic vinegar and
What a
sourdough bloomer.
combination.
What a combo.
Yeah. I think for me, it felt like a bit of a Christmas family dinner where everyone's come to the table with different views, but you're still family because I think me and Ostermere, one of our other Pinewheels, really struggled with the relationship with Navarre this weekend.
Mm.
Because on one hand, you're right, it's, we are allies, we're all fighting for the same cause. But we'd been in Thurunin and it it felt like we're fighting for Navarre, we're wiping up their mess, and they're kind of just you've got those of them in Isaiah's dance who are very committed, but then you've also got those who have, run to the barons to go and do things. So there was a lot of conflict between what are we going to do about these people who are not part of the cause but are part of Navarre. Then we also had the fact that last summit we were fighting with them and they completely just were a bit of a mess on the battlefield. We had, I mean, Annika anyway had the run in with Black Scar, and these were things that really soured her opinion of Navarre. And I think, to be fair, the only reason he didn't maybe go after the generals or things like that is
Yeah,
because
it's
there
not
was
dissident.
prosperity in an alliance with Corwin. And, we couldn't keep that alliance if we were to go and upset him by, killing Navari citizens or going after groups that he's associated with,
Mm.
like Black Scar. So that was interesting to talk out. And I think Resume did a good job of reminding us all of like common goals and really getting the group to bond on this. That was really fun to watch.
Yeah, it was especially with the perspective of I'm pretty much new here. I'm not Pletomir. I don't have any personal
Mm.
connections or biases to any of you. I've been dropped in by Pinewheels High Command all the way from Ossium to come and sort out what's going on in Anvil. And yeah, it's having all these different viewpoints and us having to make a profound decision about who we support and why. I think that was very much the spirit of the game in action. The core principle of Empire is you've got all these clashing valid points of view and then picking how you're going to go forwards.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, which I don't think or maybe we did know at this point, but obviously Rushka were really pushing, and Isaiah's dance were really pushing for one of the conjunctions to go back to Tharunin to help the Iron Helms who were there, stuck as husks to pass through the labyrinth or to relieve them. And we were completely ignored. And I don't really know exactly what went down in military council, but a lot of Varushkans came away feeling abandoned by the Empire and um, they weren't offered the support that we've shown. So this is something that's going on outside of Pinewheels, but it's nice that we're sort of we're very aligned with the nation in how we play our game, which is cool considering we didn't spend much time with them.
Yeah, considering I understand PD gave us this balancing act because the Tharunin battles, first of all, objectively, fighting the Druge is the most fun battles, followed by Grendel, followed by Jotun. Jotun are boring. I know they're trying to spice things up with like different units and giving us more strategic impact each time we fight the Jotun, but my god, I am sick of fight. Everyone I talk to is sick of fighting fucking Jotun. Sick of playing as them, sick of fighting against them, sick of gate fights, but I'll leave that for Sunday because that's my salt. That's my salty day. Um, but the emotional impact of abandoning what's left of the Iron Helms. These are our brothers and sisters, our commanders, our parents, friends, lovers. These people, our Varushkan people, are currently full of winter spirits, and they're being driven. Potentially we could have driven them at the enemy just to give the Druge one final fuck you, and we didn't. And now those spirits are going to start raiding the Empire, just as much as they raid the Druge. Is what I imagine will happen. And then for the Navari conjunction, it's to reclaim their banner. Now, I don't think there's much that could get the Navar to actually advance into a meat grinder because they seem to really struggle with committing. But a pile of Navari corpses leading up to the banner, what a cool battle that would have been.
Yeah.
We would have seen Navar push and push and push until there was no more to give to claim that banner. Like, what an emotional, impactful battle that would have been. And cinematic, right? That's why we're there. Those big Empire battles, the cinema of it, you're in the film. But instead, of course, the military council voted for the Children of Rex, which is still objectively cool. Captain Jack Sparrow with a shark fetish. But then the Sunday Sunday is the Jotun, and you all quite clearly know my opinion on the Jotun. But yeah, a real shame that we didn't get any Drew skirmishes for for this event because we even had a banner. We actually have a separate Navar, like a defiled Navari banner. So whenever we monster as Druge, we want to whip that out. Getting to lean into that like psychological warfare, the ambushes, the traps, the baiting that the Druge can do on their brief is so much fun to monster as versus stand in a line and wait for them to kill you.
Yeah.
The end.
And I think it would have been so cathartic for Marushka, and I think it would have unlocked just another level of like national grief to go onto the battlefield and see your family and your army there stuck as spirits. And it just felt like it would have been such a great battle for Varushka. And I love our nation, but we sometimes struggle to get those really cool skirmishes because of our size. And it seems like other nations just get a bit more juicier plot when it comes to conjunctions. So it would have been nice to actually have had something really nice to get into. We'll get on to the battles because that's the Saturday and Sunday thing. This is where the fun really begins, which is family dinner.
Family dinner. Yes, I was gonna,
Family dinner.
get salty about war rhinos, but yeah, family dinner. So Varushka, as Amber has kindly mentioned, very family orientated nation. So part of the Pinewheels, we were going to experiment with basically having a family dinner this summit. Prior to this, we've always tried to do bar crawls as Black Scar or just bar crawls as a group of mates, right? Once the day's kind of wound down. But the idea of committing to a whole 3 or 4 hours puts people off. Some people don't want to drink for 3 or 4 hours. Some people have got meetings. Some people just don't have not on the same energy level, right? They're knackered. So I thought, hey, let's use that one brain cell that's lodged somewhere near the base of my spine and just limit it. 30 minutes to an hour. You don't have to stay, but 30 minutes is the core of it, and it's up to an hour. And it's like booking a restaurant for you and 20 mates after a show or something. We went to the Marches to this delightful pub called the Wandering Goose. Big shout out to the
Dancing
Wandering
goose.
Goose. The dancing.
Dancing goose. Don't get that
Oh
wrong.
my god, I'm so bad at this. Thank you, Amber. Thank you so much. The dancing goose. We wandered up to the dancing goose, and the satisfaction of being able to take all of the fees from the Pinewheels and basically immediately reinvest them in drinks and food. It felt really cool, like to do it for the group as a bit of a surprise because they didn't really know that was going to happen. And going up to this bartender and saying, "Yeah, table for 12, please, at 10 o'clock, 10 to 11." We would like two cheese boards, a charcuterie board, and a couple of rounds of drinks. How much does that cost? X thrones, dump a bag on the table, and pretty much go and keep the change. Just let us have a good time. And then rocking up at 10 o'clock as a big mercenary group. We had all of Wick's Rest with us, of course, all the Pinewheels, and we had Corwin as well, our employer, and we all sat down for dinner and had a good old chin wag.
It was lovely. I remember sitting down and immediately spotting just like a, a pile of games, and I was like, that's a really nice touch. And I think my favorite bit of that whole meal was watching Express grill Corwin about the safety of these battles and like how competent he was as a leader. Um, because I know Corwin like OC, but seeing him IC and just, be confronted by these strangers who were just like, Navarre shit kind of thing was fun to watch. And it just it brought the two groups really close together. It was really nice. And just like the weather, the ambiance, watching other tables have just as much fun. it felt like a night out on the town, you know, like it really felt as if we were maybe we'd gone into like London or something for a couple of drinks with our mates. It was great.
Yeah, and being able to just get to know each other. I know that sounds really simple, but the bonds you form as friends OC, right? They obviously carry iced tea, so when you're fighting together, you know you're gonna back each other up. But the Pinewheels and Wick's Rest don't know each other that well at this point. You know, you and Slaughtermere are the key contacts, and this is the first time the two groups of five have kind of met each other, let alone with the prospect of war happening the very next day and starting to plan things like, what are our, what's our strategy? How do we fight? What fight are we going on? How do we fight the children of Rex? All whilst being able to have the usual kind of, dirty soldier talk and, you know, slam our tankards on the table and, make oaths and stuff like that. It very much felt like, again, that first 30 minutes of a film where you get to meet all the characters and it's very much framing the whole weekend.
Yeah, it was. This is where I met Annika Squared as well. Expressed had a new player with them, who also went by the name of Danica, and that unlocked some really fun role play because we were both from Cask and we were like, whoa, you know, like this is fun. And it felt like they became family members in a way,
Yeah, definitely.
which made the whole weekend that much worse, which we're slowly crawling to.
Yeah, the family dinner, wholesome as it was, I'd say it's quite tame as well, because I'm well aware that there's a decent chunk of players on the field who aren't, they don't want to go out and get absolutely blottoed and get silly drunk until 1 in the morning. They want to have, a little snack and a drink or two. Get to socialise, of course, but be sensible and get to bed by 12 o'clock, which is a very smart move. And something like a bar crawl just it doesn't really let those people in. And I thought family meal, it's very icy. We'll get some actual benches and have a sit down and a chat. Compare what's happened all the day. We had traders stopping by. We had a couple bards. We had more the second night, but we'll sing that a little bit later. But yeah, the ambience in the marches, absolutely fantastic.
Great place to go for a drink. And yeah, big shout out to the guys who run Drunken Goose, the dancing goose. Oh my gosh, Destiny you. They're never gonna let us back. We'll have to get sponsored by them or something. But they were awesome. They were joining in with like our sort of we'd go up to the bar and we'd have like just barman chat, but like I see, which was fun. You know, I was trying to get out of them how military council went. We learned that the marches that day had a skirmish that went pretty badly. And just good vibes. I'd say this is like the beginning of the end for us because it felt like such a peak on the Friday, and then what followed was I don't think there's a word in the English dictionary to coming up, but not fun, not fun at all.
Yeah, we got giggle stomped to borrow something from Phil. We got absolutely giggle stomped. Uh, yeah. So, there's one more final piece of positivity, and that is making money. So after our dinner, we wrap up around 11 o'clock, and it's time to do some dog racing. Dog racing, for those of you who don't know, are a well, sorry, is a highbrow and highly technical sport where it's based on a game called Horse Race. If you ever played that with a deck of cards, and the idea is you have the four races and a little track of six cards which are face down, and then you pull from the rest of the deck. And let's say if it's a club, the ace of clubs move forwards one space. If it's a heart, the ace of hearts move forwards one space, and it's the first card to get to the end. So it's basically a little dog race. That's it. And the idea is you bet on your dog, and if your dog wins, you double your money. And it could have been more simple, but the reception we've had from it, from running it at
It's incredible.
yeah, the night market at E4, and then we ran out of Wick's Rest for a little bit before moving to the Glory Square and sitting in the middle of the Glory Square on Friday night running this game. We made a disgusting amount of money. I think we made about 10 thrones in the
Yeah,
space of an
it
hour
was
and a half.
ridiculous. It's such a good game to get. People get really invested in it, and they bring such a buzz to it. Then other people hear and want to come over. It's a very like communal game, and it's something that once we discovered we could take it mobile, I think it's unlocked. like like I don't know how much income for us, but we're gonna make bank over this next year.
Yeah, especially with some great role play from our friend Alex, who's in Black Scar, who went bankrupt supporting the pug to the very end of the night, and the pug just did not perform. The pug was not a an agile dog, unfortunately.
No.
But
Who
when
thought? Who would think a pug would lose to a plague wolf? Not me.
no, who would have thought? But the thing is, when the pug did win a few times, Alex's reaction was just incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's a very valuable lesson in understanding why people get addicted to gambling OC, right? Um, it's the emotional attachment to the pug winning, and he was getting other people to come up and like the pug's gonna win, pug's gonna win. I could feel that the pug's gonna win, and the pug would have like 4 or 5 crowns on it, and then just come in fourth place again and again and again.
It's just free marketing. If as long as you get like two sort of people who are willing to throw everything at the game, you don't have to. You can just sit back and let the carnage unfold. Bit of a bank.
Yeah, a couple of well placed, you know, like hype people, and you're sorted. And it's the kind of game we could franchise it. That's the best part. We could absolutely
Yeah.
franchise it. Because you just all you need is a table, a chair for your the person running the game. Everyone else can stand and gather around, and a deck of cards and a bit of a float cash wise. You're good to go.
Yeah. Um, just before we went dog racing as well, was quite a scary 40 minutes for Danica. I thought it might be game over for the character.
Oh gosh, yes, yes, of course.
Yeah, so we're having our lovely cheesy family dinner, and sort of ask Resume, hey dude, what's the time? And it's 11, and I'm like, oh okay, it's time to go and meet the shadowy stranger from Black Scar. I've invited to the Varushkan hearth. And I mainly chose that point because I was like, people will be around, if they come with backup and, they do want to kill Danica, then it's quite a public space. And then Resume came up with the brilliant suggestion of sending in backup. So I went with Boss, I think, to the hearth. Boss disappeared for a little bit, so I kind of just hid around a corner to try and watch the hearth, and the shadowy stranger appeared, which surprised me a little bit. And what followed was just, it was so much fun. It's the first time that I've like developed a personal relationship with someone in LARP, and exploring that was really fun. Um, so we kind of spent the first 20 minutes deciding whether we were going to kill each other or not, whether each of us had bought a party. I didn't realize that the staged group of marchers just sort of to our left was actually you guys until the next day when someone was like, I had no idea because it's pitch black at night. I've got my cloak on. So his character is Blythe. He's from Black Scar. He was their new brand of brands. I don't know if he was at that point or if that was the following day, but
I think
we're both a
yeah,
bit
it was next day.
cloaked up. Yeah. So we meet and we very quickly discover that actually we've got way more in common. We're both here to protect our families. We are both a bit, disgruntled at how the Empire is treating our nations. And we develop a really good friendship. And we spend maybe like an hour or two at different points in Anvil just chatting. And we very quickly decide that it'd be fun to continue this friendship and see where it goes. So we sort of math um, feelings towards each other as an alliance, as a sort of we'll bring two families together and we will, create some kind of agreement where each of the families look out for each other. And we walked back to Navarre, dropped him off at the Black Scar camp, and kind of left him with I've got in touch with you, you get in touch with me if you want this to continue kind of thing. Very like flirty, friendly banter, and we parted ways. And it was very much a like you meet a stranger, you are like, oh, this is fun. And so it was really interesting to see how that might change. But it was such a rush of emotions because you go from like 11 o'clock, oh, I'm gonna die, to 11:15, hey, let's get married, which was weird. And
Standard for
coming
Empire. You've known each other for
standard for
45
Empire.
minutes. Let's get married.
Let's get married. And it was so much fun because me and Tiki are mates outside of the game, but we haven't really met each other in game. And it was just really really good role play, and I don't think we broke character for like the whole time we were there. And coming back to the Pinewheels who'd been pretty scared, I think, to see what might happen. Going, yeah, no, it's all good. Don't worry. No one's dead.
Yeah, so we
Um,
were we were like waist deep in piss alley like commandos, waiting for you to like drop a signal or for Tiki to have a sorry for Blythe to to have a go all of a sudden because we followed you down to the hearth and we saw him sat down before you came to collect him. That group of marchers was us talking about cider in our best Warnwold accent. Like I can't even do one. Cider, yeah, cider in the Warnwold accent.
you're
No,
very,
I
very
can't do it. I
gullible.
can't do it. But we were sat there. We changed our hats so our silhouettes looked a bit different.
Really? Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't even notice.
and then we split up into two pairs, and then if you imagine it like a triangle, you and Blythe are the tip of it, and we were on either side of the road, about 10 meters back and 15 meters back, respectively. So we had a good line of sight to you, and when you were walking towards the Davari Woods, we thought, oh no, he's gonna jump her in there, and it's gonna be a gang fight. Here we go. This is the rest of our weekend is just murdering Black Scar one by one.
Yeah, well, because at one point we walked to the bottom just outside the forge, and while we were talking, another member of Black Skull walked very, very close behind me towards the forest, and I was like, oh, this is where it begins. But actually, they were just on their way back from like the shops or something. But when you're in that sort of heightened state of anxiety, everyone is a threat. And I was like, oh my God, this is when it happens. And I didn't know if you guys were around, so I sort of pulled my knife out on Blythe, and I was like, what are you doing? Um, and it very quickly just realized actually we're both here to just settle a score. And the letter that I'd sent him had like sort of token of like I would rather this end nicely rather than have to die because I'm quite attached to Danica. And we don't know each other, so let's just not spill blood over something that doesn't need to be spilled. And yeah, it was just a really cool interaction, and it got so much better and worse over the weekend.
Yeah, because we didn't see that other member of Black Scar. What we did see is you pull a knife, and then all of us looking at each other like, "Is it go time?" We've all pulled out like clubs and swords. One of us has a Hessian bag to put him in, just in
Yeah,
case.
actually.
Yeah, we had a bag for
Really
him.
funny.
We're gonna go and put him in the woods and cover him up and pretend he's a bag of tomatoes or something. Uh,
Oh,
then when you turned back towards our camp, we thought, oh, she's turned the tables on him. She's taken him back to our place. So we followed you back, and we sort of were either side of our tent. So when you were sat down having, what in reality, a lovely chat of two very well aligned people, you had four people within a 5 meter radius, all armed, ready to go.
really funny.
For about 40 minutes, we were just sat
Absolutely
there
no
watching you
idea.
two.
So funny because I thought you guys had all maybe like just gone off to Wick's Rest because maybe you lost us or something. And I was like, yeah, okay, Dania's by herself. She's going down. She's really going down. But I did catch up with Tiki after time out. And he was very prepared to just die. He was like, at this point, the player, not the character, but
You mean the
he was
character, not
like,
the player, right?
yeah, that's the one. He said he was like, I just came, I thought maybe you guys were gonna jump me or something, and what's the point of backup? Because Black Scar was quite fractured at this point in the evening. They're about to go into like an election, which he abandoned for this meeting, and I was like very flattered. But yeah, what a great way to end the day. And then it was followed by dog racing.
It was followed by dog racing, and we were chatting behind the tent, saying, "Look, it looks like they're getting along well, but we could just." This was a bit of an OC chat. We could just deliberately misunderstand, and we run
Could
in,
have
and
been
you're like
so
screaming,
mad.
"No, no, no!" As in like, "No, don't attack me, Blythe!" As we stab him to death.
That would be really fun. Um, yeah, I mean, I think we got quite an early night in on Friday evening.
Yeah, like 1 o'clock. I think it was time
Yeah,
out. Once we finished up dog racing, and we lugged the table home, and we went to bed. And you were cozy and warm because you were well prepared this time.
yeah, that's the first. Honestly, this weekend's been the first LARP where I felt warm and toasty at night. I didn't have to wake up, to stop freezing once. Yeah, we've really got a good setup in our tent now.
Yeah, we've I think, yeah, I'm gonna have to be more careful what armor I bring because I can't wear three sets at once.
You can try.
I could. Oh,
How many
damn.
hit points would that give you?
Unfortunately, still just three, just the additional three.
Um,
Rip. But yeah, as you said, this was very much the peak. Made a lot of money, made a lot of cheer, made some new friends and some new employees, and this takes us into the bloodbath that is Saturday.
Yeah. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, so we are literally now exactly at the 1 hour mark. Shall we pause it here, give people a Friday episode, and then we'll immediately keep talking about Saturday?
That sounds perfect.
All right, then. I'm going to formally end this part of the episode, dear listeners. Catch you very shortly. Bye.
Hurrah!